Sounds good.
Get comfortable.
Yeah, I will.
Take off your backpack.
I will.
I have a younger sister.
Yeah.
Her name is Janet. And my parents, from the get-go, kind of thought that we should be attending this school. And so they actually built a house within walking distance back when I was a young kid.
Really?
And, 1955 they started. At 56 the house was ready. And if you go down Normal Street, here one full block past Lake Ruth, there's Calhoun Street. Mm-hmm. If you take and you go to the next block, there's a little short section of Western Avenue. They called it Western Court. Yeah. That's where we lived, in a little house there. So I could actually walk or ride my bike conveniently to school with the other kids. I had several neighbors who were also in my class. And so we would walk to school every day. And so it was very convenient. And that was planned by my parents. And I still have the letter. So you had to petition the university, had to ask for permission if your kid could attend here.
Right.
I've still got that letter saying, it was like 1958 or 59, saying that I was approved to be enrolled here. Yeah. And the alumni house was the home economics training house back then. It wasn't the alumni house. Right. And there was in the summer of 59, there was a play school, which was a preliminary sorting preschool type of activity. And either you went in the morning or the afternoon over there. And it was only like for an hour, a couple of hours. But you rode tricycles and you finger painted or something. Yeah. And you were being evaluated as to whether you're ready for kindergarten. Right. So that's what we did, 59. And then in 1960, I came over here into kindergarten, Miss Burke. And Marjorie Burke was wonderful. The experience was wonderful. Like I said, I felt like, felt like I was kind of special because I was going to school here. Yeah. And I'm sure other people felt the same way. But we would walk to school, and most days, Mom didn't have to drive us. Yeah. In fact, I can't remember ever being chauffeured over here. Although other kids in my class did. Some kids, it was a daily thing because they lived further away. Right. Now, I wanted to talk about living far away. Lots of kids from farms, from little towns around here, they would come here. In fact, Principal Horban lived over on a farm by Blandonsville. And he came every day from Blandonsville. Even in winter, there's kids from out in the rural areas. That was that's how it's really popular to have your class here. You'll get to be a student here. So they would come from all over the county. But we had, like I said, Miss Burke was the kindergarten teacher, and they split us into two groups, and I was in the smaller first grade with Miss Elizabeth Savage. That was 1961. And I've got these pictures. There was a fence around Lake Ruth for our protection. Yeah. Because there had been some adults drowned in there. Yeah. Prior to when we came over, but for when after some of that happened way back when. Yeah. They put this fence around there to protect the kids that might try to go swimming. Yeah. So they kept you out of there. Yeah. So that was what that was.
Well, I heard a little girl drowned in there.
Well,
is that correct? Or
no,
is that a myth?
That's
and her name was Ruth.
Yeah, that's a myth.
Warren actually.
Yeah. The actual true story is an adult drowned. There was a girl who lived down in this area, and a guy painting the house in the area heard her screaming because she was in the water. Yeah. He went to rescue her, and he couldn't swim, and he drowned. He was an adult.
Did they both drown?
No. Oh. The girl was fine. Okay. Now, Ruth was actually the daughter of one of the trustees of the school when it was first being created. And so that's kind of why her name, you know, he put up some of the money to fix it up to be actually a beautiful pond.
Yeah.
It was actually sort of a runoff place, or just a low spot where there was some water. It was always whatever drained away from Sherman area.
Right.
That would just collect down there. Well, he actually spent some money, and he had been mayor of the town, and you know he was one of the upper politically connected businessmen.
Right.
In fact, I think he had a pharmacy business. I know that he owned this building downtown where there'd been a pharmacy for years. This is a nice picture because it shows the kids there along the east side of the building. Now that was, I think, in the 40s, because if you look at the cars, they're it's probably late 40s.
Right there.
And so this was something I found in one of the sequels. This is H. Waldo Horban when he first started as principal here. And he was, like I said, a chemistry instructor, professor of chemistry. That's a dedication.
Did you have much interaction with
Horban? Like I would see him, obviously, in the hall all the time. We'd see him at all kinds of functional, things, because every once in a while they would have an all-school type of gathering for important, information, whatever, kind of in the theater or in the gym or something. But I was only in trouble a couple of times.
Yeah.
And one time I was probably in 5th grade, 6th grade, something like that. Wintertime. The bike racks, when I first came to school here, it was out in the northeast corner, right there where the air conditioning is. That's where the bike racks were.
Okay.
And then after a while, they put them out directly east of the building. So when I'm talking about the snowball fight in the wintertime, I was out there with a dozen other kids, and we were having a friendly snowball fight.
Yeah.
Well, one of them faculty didn't like it. So he told me to go to the principal's office. So he escorted me up there. And that's the first time I got a lecture from Mr. Horgan about the danger to a person's eye by a snowball. And he could kind of tell. I could see that he was about half grinning too, because I wasn't buying any of that. I was just a kid, and we were going to throw snowballs again so I could get out of there. But that was the first time. And then probably when I was in 7th grade, maybe 6th grade, somewhere in there, we were listening. We were in the auditorium, the theater that I just showed you. We were sitting in those seats up close to the front. There was a record player. There was a music class. Paul Potter was the teacher, music teacher. He's the guy that helped me. Helped us, came around with the cart. He would also come around and give you, you get to class in some place. We'd listen to these Broadway shows. They had LPs, and they would get like a famous Broadway production that had been recorded, say West Side Story. I'm not saying that was a particular one, but one of the ones that was Carousel, West Side Story, Showboat, all of the ones, big shows, Man of La Mancha, Camelot. I think second grade or something like that, we were listening to Camelot probably in the classroom. But this was in the theater there. And I was sitting next to Scott Rickey. Scott Rickey, his dad was the baseball coach at the university, Guy Rickey. And Scott and several of his sisters went to school there. And so Scott said something funny. And anybody that heard it, a couple of us guys busted out laughing. And Mr. Potter had a temper. He came over and he looked at Scott, and I was grinning, and he whacked me on the head and said, "You go to the principal's office and you sit there until I come and let you out. And I'll come and get you, release you." So that was the second. I didn't actually see Principal Horban that time, just his secretary.
Oh, okay.
But that was the second and last time.
Did he ever come get you? How long did it take till he came and got you?
Well, at the end of the class.
Oh, okay.
And so he came, and now that was just one time. One important thing in the summertime or so, I think it's probably third grade maybe, we were given an opportunity to start to learn how to play an instrument. Mm-hmm. And of course, my big thing was I wanted to play the trombone. I thought that was a fun thing to try to learn how to play, you know, with a little slide and all that. Well, they were creating a grade school band, and they had their ideas of who they wanted, how many horns of this type or the other. And so they came actually to your house. One evening, the music instructor, actually two people showed up and told me verbatim that I did not have the embouchure, proper embouchure for playing the trombone.
What's embouchure?
Lip structure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My lips were too thin or something like that. No, I couldn't pucker properly. No, just something like that. That's what they said. Yeah. So basically we had to buy the instruments, the family. So my dad was told that trombones were out. They suggested a trumpet. So I started learning to play the trumpet. My dad went up and bought one, a real nice Holton Collegiate trumpet. I had a real nice horn. So I would carry that to school every day. Carry it from over there with my books or whatever, and come and get a lesson from Mr. Potter or Mr. Paulding. When you were in grade school, they had a grade school orchestra, and that was Orrin Gould. Mr. Gould came around, and he was one of the people that was early on. You saw him regularly for music. Of course, you saw Mr. Potter, but Mr. Gould was, he was very frequently the one in the early grades that you would get acquainted with. Well, you saw him push his card in, you knew it was time for music. And very good at what he did. But he was orchestra. So if you were one of these people who wanted to be learning how to play violin or clarinet or something, you would see him. He would teach you some of that, as opposed to like Mr. Potter, who taught me trumpet, Mr. Paulding, trumpet. Had a lot of music. And I also took piano lessons, private piano lessons from like second grade. My mom wanted me to learn how to do that, and that worked out fairly well, hit and miss. I went to these lessons, and so it all worked out as far as reading music. It all kind of helped. So second, third grade, you had, the two teachers. Second grade was Mrs. Leedy, Mrs. Ginrich. And then third grade was Barbara Colwell and Elna Scott Nail. About the only thing memorable about second grade, that we had a boy in the class that I think he probably had ADHD, but nobody knew it. He was just sort of a wild kid, kind of out of control, had a mean streak to him. He stabbed me with a pencil twice, different times. But that's one of the things that I remember about second grade, is getting stabbed.
Did it hurt you, or?
Oh, yeah.
Did it
once in the knee, and then we were out by the drinking. That was in class. Out by the drinking fountain. He was ahead of me or something. He turned around with a sharp pencil and jammed me in the palm of my hand. And it was just, he was a wild kid, disruptive. He was just always doing something. But when third grade rolled around, one day he was out of control, so bad, so disruptive, that the teachers actually tied him down in a chair with jump ropes. That actually happened. And the other significant thing that happened during third grade, and that was November 22nd, 1963. Does that date ring a bell?
63. Kennedy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were, you've seen these old wooden speaker boxes hanging in every classroom.
Yeah.
That was the PA system. Plus they had like a telephone system, switchboard type of thing. It came from principal's office. The teachers were all told to dismiss the class, you know.
Yeah.
And so somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we were all told that the president had been shot, probably assassinated or whatever, and we were supposed to go home.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go home. I went over to my classmates, Bob Salusi, went over to his house, and we were fooling around outside, and his mom come out and got mad at us because we were having too much, we were laughing.
Yeah.
And she said, "You go home now because the president has been killed."
Yeah.
And so the next 3 days, that was all that was on television and, you know, news and all that was Kennedy assassination. So that was the very significant thing.
The kids talk about that at school and everything?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. We had current events. We talked about all kinds of stuff. You know, you get to be a certain age, you kind of relate to things more than when you're younger. But yeah, we had kind of the standard thing. We had social studies. We talked about current events. We had, well, they actually would bring in movies. We would watch films. Kind of the standard Britannica issued. I don't know whether you've ever seen any of that, but Britannica was a encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
I think it came out of Chicago. World Book was an alternative. They had Britannica films, and they kind of steered them towards school. And then there was the ones that came from current events biographies, came out of CBS, and so we had those.
Yeah.
And they showed film strips, which was just a thing where you advance. It's kind of like slides. I don't know whether you've ever had slides at school, but that was kind of just a static picture. And it's kind of like PowerPoint, where they put a thing up there and then you talk about it. You might read something, and they go to the next one. And we had all of that. The AV department was big, strong. You know, any kind of audiovisual assisted type teaching. They had that sort of thing. But 1963 was about the last year that that kid who was a troublemaker was here. His dad was a dean. He was like almost the president of the university, and he was like dean of men or something like that. Well, they transferred out of here, so that kid, the problem disappeared.
Yeah.
Another nice little girl, and I guess she had a couple of brothers. Her dad was dean of education. They left, so there was a couple of kids that I can remember leaving about that time, and didn't see them in fourth grade. You know, now in fourth grade we had something slightly different. We still had the two teachers, but one was a woman, one was a man.
Yeah.
We had Betty Bloomfield Bugdavine and Roy Grindstaff. And so fourth grade was also, I think, the time where they introduced Orrin Gould brought in tonettes. They were a little flute type, almost like a recorder.
Okay.
And the music books started having these little things in it where you would play this song on this tonette thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another thing that was kind of different. We also got pens. Before it was all pencils. About third grade, fourth grade, they actually wanted us to go get these special pens to start as cursive writing, you know, cursive. And so at the time, there was no University Union. In fact, there was absolutely nothing north there of Murray Street.
Yeah.
No union, no health center. There had been a university farm. Some of the ag university farm had been over there, and there was an old house over there. I think they called it a rustic cottage. It was sort of a social place. The ag students had it, and beyond that, of course, Hanson Field was there, the football stadium, but there was a baseball diamond kind of out there, and then where Curran's, there was, if you can imagine, just like a dirt gravel road.
Yeah.
Western Avenue wasn't very wide at all, and there wasn't hardly anything out there except there was a golf course. You know where Curran's is?
Yes.
That's the building I work in.
Okay.
That was the golf course, and so there was nothing but a large expanse of grass, kind of where the library is. There was a big open place there. Stipes wasn't there. Wagner wasn't there. Morgan wasn't there. That was like a baseball field.
Yeah.
And then there was a little road that connected back up to 67, but it was just like a gravel road. It's hard to imagine unless you look at the photos, and that's why you go to those sequels, you go to those online digitized things, and you can see these aerial photos and get an idea of like what it was like back years ago. We got our books every year, start of school, 2 weeks or so. We got a list in the mail, what you were supposed to get. We would go to Chapman's bookstore.
It was Chapman's back then?
Right over here where you see this bookstore on Adams Street, that wasn't there.
Okay.
Do you know where the Phoenix is on up Adams? Phoenix?
Yes.
With the posters and that was Chapman's bookstore. Campus Co-op bookstore. Yeah. When I was in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, that's where we went to get our books. And then, right about third grade or so, they opened up this new, really nice bookstore. Where it is, where you go over there.
The brick one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That, where it says, the bookstore.
Yeah, Sarge's there.
No, Sarge's wasn't there.
Isn't Sarge's the brick one?
No.
And Chapman? No. Okay. Chapman's is the brick one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See, there's the furthest west, next to the sorority. That house has been a sorority house forever and a day. But that's the one I'm talking about. Sublime brick.
Okay.
2-story.
Right.
Yeah. And then just east of there, where the sandwich shop is. Okay, that came in a couple of years later. That was Scott's Annex, and there was some clothing store and a barber shop above there. One side was Scott Annex, another one, and then it was a competitive bookstore, but by different people. But Chapman's, that's where you bought your books, because there wasn't a union bookstore, because there was a student union. It was over there, kind of where Lincoln and Washington is. Yeah. There was a place there. They've torn down a couple of dorms. There was Bennett Hirsch was over there, and they've torn those down. And there was an old women's dormitory called Grody Hall over just east of Sherman. Now they put up a brand new dorm and they renamed it Grody. Carolyn Grody was a lady who was like dean of women, and she was in charge of anything to do with women for years. But back in the 1930s or so, 20s and 30s, and but that was there up until the 70s, that old building, and then they tore it down. But that's where the student union, there was a restaurant you could eat and hang out over there. That's where it was before they built the union there on the north side of Murray Street. The one thing that I wanted to say was kind of interesting is when I first started coming over here, there were Army barracks. There weren't, Corbin Olson wasn't there. Yeah. When I first started walking over here as a kid, first grade, they were just building Corbin, if you can believe it. Yeah. What was there were Army barracks that had been for students that came right after. There was a big influx of students after World War II. They called it Vets Village. Yeah. And they had Army barracks there, and they had Army barracks over where East Village is. And then there was a big building they called the Gymkhana building, which was right where Corbin's Corbin's south wall is, kind of where that commissary in between those two dorms. Yeah. It was a 2-story thing, and that's where the gymnastics people trained. You'd go over there and you'd see Robert Clow, I think, was the gym teacher. when we were kids, we would stick our heads in there to see these guys doing these fantastic things with rings and you know, these vaults and things, the tumbling and all that. And so we would hear while we were going to school, bang, 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 all this construction all the time in the summer, especially when they would open the windows. This building has windows, thermal, you know, insulated windows now. Mm-hmm. The windows were all different back then. There wasn't any air conditioning. And in the summertime, you sweat. And you stuck to your desk. And so one of the kids that you would come in the morning to, like, say, your third grade room, and if it was like 80 to 90 degrees out, and not in the morning, but sometimes in the morning, but, you know, one of the first things that kids would like to do is get permission to use this big, long stick to yank open this window and open up the windows, and they had these pedestal fans that would blow on you. And that was it. And man, you sweat. I mean, it was when it was hot outside. It was hot in this building, and so I can remember, you know, lots of days sticking to my desk. And so there's been some improvements. Like after, you know, the English department took over, they put the air conditioning in. They got the new windows there, you know, 30 years ago. So you may have noticed that lower banister down the stairs here. Yeah. You see, there's two. Yeah. Well, that lower one's for kids. And if you can believe it, we used to be able to run, like say second or third grade, we'd run to lunch. We would come down there and we could actually get our butts up on that and slide our way down. Yeah. We would try to beat each other down to the lunchroom. We'd get in line. We'd go along there, and the south wall, we'd hand right inside the door, there was the secretary, for the principal secretary, Miss Woods, Donna Woods, and we would either hand her the ticket if we were going to have lunch, the hot lunch program. We would either hand her the ticket and then move in line along the south wall over towards the west wall where we would get our food. The cooks in there, they had a hot lunch every day, and Faye Fowler, Cora Barrett, and I think Dorothy Wright, those were the ladies in the lunchroom. And if you had a sack lunch, you know how kids used to have those lunch boxes with the TV show stuff or the movie stuff on it? A lot of kids brought in, you know, their cowboy themed or their Batman themed or whatever lunch boxes from home or sack lunch. And she had a cooler full of milk cartons. So for 10 cents you could get one of those and eat with your lunch. And so you just go to the table there, and you wouldn't get your tray and go through that whole process of getting your lunch. One of the neat things about kindergarten that's always been fun to remember is we got a carton of milk, and then we had to bring a little rug from home. Mom was supposed to provide us with this little mat or this little rug for us to lay down. So I don't know, 2 hours into the kindergarten, they would say, okay, it's nap time. So we get our little milk, we have our milk, and then we get one of those stackable cots, which were aluminum frames with a blue material, and then we put this rug on that thing, and then we would lay down for half an hour, and that was an everyday thing. During Halloween, they would have everybody come in the costumes. They had a parade where they would have every grade go through every other grade, you know, in a big long chain, all dressed up in costumes. We'd go back to our room. We'd have those orange cookies and chocolate milk or white milk, whichever we wanted, and that was kind of special. I remember in first grade we had dunking for apples, and I think we had some kind of a circus-themed event. I remember participating in that, and I think in here I already showed you that one picture. This is another one of those outdoor pictures. That shows the bike racks the way they were when I was here. Yeah, that's the way it was.
What type of food did you guys usually get at lunch? Did I cook for you?
Well, here's a picture. That's Mr. Horban, and This is a blow up of the kids running on the playground. Now that was the playground area.
Yeah.
These are kids from my class.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. This kid right here was Jill Hyde,
Yeah.
and that's Kay Severinson, and that's Janice Wallen. I recognize those kids. That's
wild.
yeah. That's
And this was in probably
62.
Okay.
We were second graders.
Okay.
Yeah. I showed you the grade school library room.
Yeah.
Up there, right out to the theater. That's the way it looked when it was actually the library.
Yeah.
You might have a duplicate picture of that, but there's the doctor, Theodore Bernardi. He's
So he was a school doctor.
So when you had a sore throat, or you had to have shots, or some kind of inoculations for polio, or TB or something, you went through this whole process of inoculations. They did that. Here's what I was looking for. This is my class in that room that I showed you.
Yeah.
That was one of the student teachers. That's not that wasn't Mrs. Savage. This is some lady who was practice teaching. Yeah, this is Mike Ritter. That's Mitch Elliott, and that's Ken Hudson. All classmates of mine. But that was just a typical day in 1961. And here's an older picture of the first grade class. That's Margaret Shannick. But this is like 1954, see, way before I was ever here. And that was a Christmas party they were having in first grade.
And that was the teacher you said was
Margaret Shannon. She was, yeah. Well, I think she'd already been there teaching first grade, probably before this building was here. So, and there's one of those typical, you see those pictures. Here's some of those ladies. Now this was Rupert Simpkins. I wanted to bring a picture showing him. This is like 1940 here, and some of these teachers were still here when I came here. If you read the names, you'll see Margaret Shannick. You'll see Marjorie Burke, first and second grade kindergarten teacher, that sort of thing. They were still here. Here's the grade school library. Those are two kids, and I think it was third grade. Richard Harden and Patty Joyce in that library, having some fun. Here's a picture of the band. I couldn't find myself in there, but I was in there because that was I remember being in the band. So that would have been like fourth grade or so, third grade, fourth grade. Here's a Spanish.
Oh, so you guys took Spanish?
Yeah, we had Spanish. This is Mrs. Castle. Mrs. Castle taught Spanish. The lady who took you on the tour, Darlis Mummer.
Yes.
Her mother, Norma, also was a Spanish teacher out here about the same time. So we had her. This is my class. And so fourth grade, that's just a typical day. So they would come in, you would get a dose of music, we'd come in and get a dose of Spanish, and we loved it. It was fun. Just kind of routine. Here's one of the gym scooters. That's very typical. That's not a gym scooter but that was similar to what we had. And we would check those out after we ate our lunch and go for half an hour or so in the big gym, pulling each other around on scooters. And these are the lunchroom ladies that I told you about. These ladies across the top. This is a school nurse, and these are janitors that were in the building. Some of the ones, not all of them. They changed their ears, but those are the ladies I remember working in the kitchen. And it was a little tiny kitchen. I don't know how they managed it, but we had. Typically on Friday they would cook fish sticks for kids that were Catholics because they couldn't eat. They had they had certain rules that they couldn't eat cheeseburgers. We had that. We had a special Thanksgiving meal, usually turkey, some little turkey, sliced turkey and mashed potatoes. Great. A lot of us kids, we really kind of liked at least early on, we kind of liked the variety of things that we had. I particularly liked something that was like, I think it was rice pudding or something like that. It was just like an every other Wednesday they'd have that. And I can remember there was a table after you got your tray of food. There was a table there where a girl would have bread and butter, and then they would have this vat of hot rice pudding in little dishes, little cups, so you put them in and put sugar on it. I used to dose my a lot of sugar. Yeah, it was just kind of the way it was. It was a lot of fun. And then we'd eat and we'd race up to the gym and get busy with throwing balls or messing around with scooters. It was just a lot of fun. We had the PE program. We would go off to have an hour of PE, and depending on the season, we would do different things. But it was always really great. I liked all of the instructors. Had a great respect for the school, and I knew that I was getting a great education. I couldn't have asked for better teachers. So that's why I think it was a real privilege to attend this school. Even though there was, like I said, some differences, we would have groups of college kids, the students that were going. I mean, a whole class would come in folding chairs, and they would be around the sides of the room, and they would be observing what was going on. And then about every other year or so, maybe 2 years, 3 years, maybe maximum, you would get assigned 4 to 5 observers. That's what we called them, student observers. And what their job was to individually watch you and write up an evaluation. They would come to all your classes. You was like a group of spies. I mean, they would spend probably a week or two before they ever even introduced themselves to you. Then you had to be introduced to these people. And then they would ask you a bunch of questions, and you'd have to, put you on the spot for whatever. And, like if you're out playing in the playground and you see this group of college students watching you, so you find, oh no, you have observers. So then one evening or so, they would come to your home. They would come and ask your mom and dad. They'd sit there in your living room. You'd be there, and they would ask about your early years, when you quit wetting the bed, when were there any other development anomalies, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so that was part of attending this school. It was all for preparation for teaching.
Yeah.
And so there was a fellow who brought those students around. His name was Wayne Wiggins. I think he ended up being Dean of Education before he retired. And then there was another fellow named Robert Peterson, maybe was his name. He was the same thing. He would have these groups come in, and I would give anything to be able to read those reports, those what they said about us. I don't know what ever happened. All it's gone. Yeah. But that would be really, really like gold now to be able to go and read what they said about you in third grade or fourth grade or fifth grade or in high school or whatever, that'd be great. So I just kind of think about that once in a while.
Yeah.
what was written up about me?
Yeah,
what was
that
written,
is interesting.
But that was something different.
Yeah.
That I don't think you got in public schools. But we got, like I said, sixth grade, we had 2 lady teachers, and Miss Alberta Flynn, Miss Helen Hoying, and then when you got to 7th grade, you went back to a single homeroom teacher, and Dorothy Burgard was her name.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went, like I said, when you got to 7th, you kind of went out of your homeroom, something different, and you went to different rooms. Like I pointed out that room upstairs that we had this history in the social studies, and Coach and Maurice Cameron, and then we would go to the study hall. That started like in seventh and eighth grade. One of the fun things that I remember doing was in 7th or 8th grade, we had a kind of a earth science type of a class. Went to the chemistry room that I pointed out on the east end, there on the top floor. And John Shaver let me make wood alcohol using a distillation process. I mean, we studied leaves, we studied all kinds of stuff, right? But actual experiment, I got to actually burn wood, little strips of wood, in this flask, and then distill with cold water and made wood alcohol.
And this was in 7th grade?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And it was like, I remember it was kind of probably getting towards summer because, it was pretty hot. But the other science class that I remember, we had biology teacher named Maurice Kellogg. Dr. Kellogg was great, and we also had a fellow that was really good at taught us like earth science, biology. Terrence Mills, T.J. Mills, fantastic. I remember we used to come in, and this is like probably started in 3rd grade maybe. Maybe we did in second. We would have show and tell. We'd have a certain section of time where you could bring something in, show and tell about it. Sometimes kids would go on these exotic trips. If their dad was a professor, they would go out of the country for the summer. And they would come in and bring all their stuff and talk to you, tell us about what they saw down in Mexico or wherever. That was pretty neat. But I remember back in those days, everything was a space program, and I was really caught up in the first was the Mercury program, Gemini program, then Apollo. And I remember I built this plastic model thing I bought up at the hobby shop and painted and did all spend all this time. Had the lunar lander, the Apollo command module, and all this stuff came apart. And I was in T.J. Mills's class in 8th grade. Had to be 8th grade. Giving this big report and showing, demonstrating all, and that was one thing I remember.
Now, had we made it to the moon yet at that point yet? Or?
Yeah. I left here. It was probably just about that time because the '68. I think the '69 was when they landed, but they were probably had orbited the moon maybe in '68. But I was very excited about anything to do with, outer space. I watched all these crazy TV shows, Lost in Space. I had fun watching some of those shows. The one science experiment that I remember that T.J. Mills demonstrated was electrolysis of water. He took a power supply and some little old Coke bottles and a little tank of water, and he actually made hydrogen in one pop bottle and oxygen in the other. He corked it off and he fired off the oxygen pop. And we were just fascinated with that stuff. And they had all kinds of neat stuff going on all the time, but you only remember certain things. Certain things impressed you, I guess. But I liked that science stuff. But it was good. It was good education, I thought. So, what are your questions? Do you have something?
You touched on a lot of stuff. I just wrote these just as maybe something we could talk about. But you really hit on a lot of stuff. I kind of just maybe you went to high school here too, right?
Yeah. See, now in '68, the Horban Hall was brand new. Okay. Yeah. Summer school of '68, they moved over to Horban Hall. Okay, so I started my freshman year in high school in Horman. And so that's when the English department moved in here.
Okay.
So that was summer school of '68. Now another thing that I wanted to say.
The lab school was gone after that, right? It was
60. Lab school was not really gone. It was just transplanted into a new building.
Okay. All right.
It was moved out of Simpkins. That was '68. Mr. Horban retired. Coach Sockler, Harry Sockler, famous coach, retired. They didn't come over there. Mr. Potter did not come. James Paulding, the band director that I really loved, because I was in marching band, junior high marching band, grade school band. I had it was great. He didn't come. He didn't come over.
Did not come for a reason?
Yeah, he got a better job.
Oh, okay.
He went to Truman State,
okay.
Kirksville, Missouri. But now Mr. Potter, he ended up in a different school, Freeport, Illinois, I think. I found out much later. I didn't know at the time what happened. I just knew that his son, Mark, that was in my class, he didn't come to the new school.
Yeah.
And so I found out later by contacting Mark what happened. I used the internet to find out where he was and wrote him. But Mark came back to college. He was here for a while. I saw him once or twice when we were both in college. So he got his degree here, and then he moved to California. And his mom, I think, was still alive. The last time I talked to him emailed him, was a couple of years ago. And he wanted a full set of encyclopedias. And I just happened through yard sales and these flea market places, I was able to get a full set, and he bought them from me. So I shipped them out. And so that was the last time I saw him. He's out there, I think it was in real estate or something. And there are several other people that live in California. I told you about my little sister. She teaches school. She got a master's degree from Western in public health. And she went out to California and found out that she had to basically get more education before she qualified to teach in California schools. So she went back and got more science. And she teaches like 7th, 8th grade earth science and public health. And she's in the Monterey school system, California. And she's been doing that for 25 years now or so. She went to LA first and then decided she didn't like that so much and she wanted to go up north. So she and her husband moved up there. And so she still's out there.
Did you ever leave Macomb for any significant
I
amount of time?
went to electronics, like a DeVry. When I got out of high school, about 7th grade, we started having a shop, industrial arts. That was another thing that I liked. That shop is way down. If you go through the music room, there's a door on the corner of the music room. You go back this little hallway, and the ROTC had used it for their shooting range. Maybe you've seen it. I don't know if you've gone back there or not, but in that hallway there was a little room right off the doors there, and you took a few steps down, and that was had always had mats, padded mats on the floor. It was an exercise room, and we called it the wrestling room because the high school wrestlers would practice in there. And so you could go down there and fool around. We did a lot of that, unofficial goofing around. We'd get down there and wrestle, and we played blind man's bluff, stuff like that. Just kind of interesting, fun things to do, killing time. But that, or we'd jump on our bikes during the noon hour, and we'd race over to that place I told you was like the International Sandwich Shop. Right next, the east building there, the east part of that building was what they called Scott's Annex, and they had candy there, Mad magazines. Oh man, everybody loved Mad magazine. So we would buy that stuff and bring it back, and you kind of
did the teachers let you guys
confiscated
confiscate
if you got
the
caught.
Yeah.
that was not a good thing to get caught. But if you're cool about it, you can keep it in your desk. And there was times to look at that. But everybody really liked that stuff. And we would go to the shop, the industrial arts down there. Glenn Houck was the instructor. He was a great guy. Learned how to turn wood on the lathes, and how to make certain little things out of plastic. We tooled leather. I made several things and took them home. That was kind of fun. The electrical interest, I think, during summer school. See, that was another thing that was different about this, is we had like 6 weeks or so of summer school, which was in June. The regular school year ended in middle of May or something like that, by middle of May. So you get like a week off, then you come back to summer school. And boy, that was when you were really sweating here in this building. It was really hot during summer school. They would have some special, different classes that you could take. One of the things that I liked was the shop, going to industrial arts, and we would make certain things. We made a little crystal radio thing, put it in a plastic soap box thing. Had more of electricity in the summer school than during the regular year. And I don't know, I guess that's where my fascination with electric stuff. We made electrical magnets. And, he had all of these different things. We learned all about the fundamentals of electricity. And so if there's anybody that I think turned me on to be interested in electronics, which is what I make my living at, was him. So all summer school, 7th, 8th grade, and then summer school during the high school, freshman, junior years. Junior year was the first year we could go to the vocational afternoon classes that they had at Macomb High School. Yeah. Have you ever seen Macomb High?
Yeah.
Okay. Down there, multiple counties, kids could come from around, and they had stuff like auto mechanics, they had printing, graphic arts, or electronics. Mm-hmm. There was a guy named Bruce Pickering that taught electronics out there, and that was 2 years. You could sign up for that, and so I did that. And as an alternative, if you wanted to make money, you could go to work at some of the restaurants in town, or some business. You could take off in the afternoons and go for a couple of hours. And I didn't think I wanted to flip burgers or do something like in one of the restaurants or whatever, or one of the other jobs. So I liked electronics. So I went out there. And then after I graduated, I went to like a DeVry for 2 years, solid. I mean, it was a little different that way, because it wasn't like school with semesters where you had your summer off. We had no summer off. We were at school all summer, so it was like a solid 2 years of time, and then you got your little associate's degree. And so that's what I did. And then I got into working on police radios. Did some television stuff on the side to make money. And then I wanted to go to college out here, and so I started taking classes and working part-time in the afternoon at a police radio repair place over on Jackson Street. It was called Macomb Communications. So I did that for about a year or so. Then they sold the business, and so I had to give that up because the guy that bought it was not wanting any part-time workers. So then I got over to hearing about jobs here at the university, and I got an opportunity, at least taking tests to qualify to be interviewed. And first time I didn't get the job, so I quit, went over to work for Peoria. I went over to the city of Peoria and got on over there and worked on police radios for a year or so over there. And then the same job opened up over here. And so I applied again, interviewed again, and I got it that time. Yeah. So 31 years ago, I started working for chemistry and physics as an electronics technician. So that's what I've been doing for a while. And took classes, what I wanted to do. They wouldn't let me go to Bradley. It's just kind of a funny thing, but I asked when I was an employee of the city, will you let me go, to Bradley? No. So, you work the job or you buy. So I was interested in education. So I took a lot more math. I took a lot of stuff that related to electronics. What I was interested in. So that's kind of physics, chemistry, just stuff like that. And of course, I went through the basic core, humanity things too. But I wasn't interested in that so much as I wanted to concentrate on stuff that related to what I was making my money. So that's kind of what I've done. And it's really funny to think about, you go 50 years back, 52 years, is when I came in here for the first time. So when I come in here, deja vu a lot. But, the building is the same for the most part, although few things have changed now. If you go to these hallways, they've got the drop ceiling with the lights. They've got all the air conditioning ducts in the center of these halls. Those hallways were domed. They were rounded tops when I was a kid. And like I said, it was hot old building in the summertime. And but we had great times. And just hundreds and hundreds of things that I can remember. One of my neighbors, his dad was an art professor out here. He was running. We were going to go home. And we were running out these doors, and back then they had what was, I guess, considered safety glass. It was a piece of glass, chicken wire, and a piece of glass. And he missed the bar. He missed the door frame and put his hand right through the chicken wire glass and got himself all cut up. And that was one thing that I remember. In second grade, another kid, Bill Bradshaw, I think, fell off the jungle gym out there and broke his arm. I think that was another accident. Bike racks. My classmate Bob Salusi came in one day, and he'd been doing wheelies or something on a bike out in the bike racks, and he whacked his teeth, and front teeth were about half missing. And that was another incident. I suppose there was other stuff that I missed, but it's quite an exciting place. One of the most fun things that I miss is they used to put a big Christmas tree right here on this top, right here, this middle window. So during the holidays, you had this wonderful Christmas tree right there, and it was just a fun thing they used to do. I guess the janitors, they used to put the flag out every day. And back when we were kids, second grade, first grade, third grade, they had a bell, believe it or not, a hand bell that they would ring to bring the kids in from recess. Because we weren't paying attention at the time. Like you saw those kids running around out there, even though there was a PE instructor or somebody out there watching, supervising. There was always somebody, just an adult there. But they would ring that bell. Hey, come back in. Yes, recess is over or whatever. And coach would out there. Of course, if it was PE, they'd blow the whistle. They had their watches, So we go in. Like the theater now, the east side where there were locker rooms for the boys. West side was girls. And so the coaches, like I mentioned, the football coach, Harry Sockler, was also a golf coach. His name was Harry Masato, and the golf course is named Masato for that reason. He was a great guy. There was several great. Tony Karras was good. That was junior high, and Howard Holman, Willis and Villette. Those were grade school guys. John Houston was a basketball. when I was in 7th grade, they had a junior JV basketball team, and I went out for it. It was called the Comets. And that's one and only time I ever went out for any sports. but I did. I wasn't any good. But I got to be on the third stringers, the ones that were absolutely bench warmers. Yeah. And we were called Abbott's Hamburgers because you met Warren Abbott. Yeah. Okay. There were three boys, and Tom Abbott was in my class. And we were all kind of just bench warmers, but we get in for the last 5 minutes of the game or something, we lose a bunch of points and he takes us out, But it was fun. That was Coach Karras, Coach Houston. Yeah, it was fun to try it. Yeah. I wasn't really interested in pursuing it, but we would. It's kind of hard to see now, but there's right across the street from Sherman. There's a parking lot, and right there on Sherman Avenue. Yeah. There was still some grass there back when we were kids, and we could play baseball. There was like on the south part was parking lot, and the grass area we would play baseball, softball, and we would also, at school, we'd play softball out here now. Also west of Corbin Olson, there's a practice field where the band practices. That's where we went over and played football in junior high. We play PE. We'd go over there across PE. We would be over there. We'd play baseball. They had some baseball fence over there, and we'd play over there. Then we'd, sled over there in the wintertime. Not school related, but just us kids. Right. We would use that as a sled. I know one guy, Bob Sluicy, flew his gas airplanes over there. It was just kind of a fun place. All this whole area, it was just home turf. It was kind of fun. We heard and watched all these buildings, the newer buildings. Like when I was a kid, when I was like first grader, we heard it was like Corbin was going up, 1960. Oh man, Memorial Hall. We heard that probably first, second grade. I've got a picture of myself taken by a friend up against one of the big earth movers they were using to move dirt when they built that. Now that was a library for the university library, Memorial Hall. It had been all in Sherman, and so 1960, I think that opened up, 59 or 60, and we remember hearing that. All that noise and then developing that. And of course Brown Hall about the same time. And there was always construction going on. And that's, shortly after Corbin went in, about maybe 2 years, then they put the Olson Hall in. More construction. And so there was always something going on. Something going on, yeah. Nice thing was homecoming. They don't do it any longer, but in October, they would have, like the 14th, 15th of October, all the sororities would have decorations up on the houses. They would make a float too for the parade, but they'd also do the houses, and they had some of it was really elaborate. But we would go around and look at that. It was just really neat. Something. And of course, they had all that homecoming stuff for the high school. When I was younger, they had big bonfires. That's part of the Yell Like Hell or whatever they called it, rally, to pump everybody up, and they would, stuff would disappear. Anything would, like a teacher's chair would disappear, and it'd get burned up. They'd stack this stuff up and, and burn it. And it was kind of fun to see some of that stuff. As a kid, you were, kind of thought, wow, what's all this? But, it was excellent times.
Sounds like it.
So, any specific questions that I didn't have to hit on?
No, you actually really touched on everything, Steve. You did, I think, got more than I ever anticipated, so I think you did great. I do have these things that you have to sign for, just,